It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. I'm Craig Hoffman. He is Logan Paulsen, and with us today, the newest analyst for CBS Sports' NFL coverage, a longtime NFL quarterback, still technically current NFL quarterback. I want to ask about that in a second. Matt Ryan. Matt, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Is that the first time you've been introduced as a CBS Sports analyst? Are we your first interview?
Yeah, it is.
Look at us.
Let's go.
It sounds a little weird, but
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah, so you specifically did not retire to do this. You are joining, CBS, doing the TV stuff. Still waiting on to see if there's another opportunity. But why was now the right time to potentially pursue television, and what could also pull you back to the football field?
Well, I think the opportunity that CBS is giving me to kind of do a little bit of everything. To me, it seemed like too good of an opportunity to pass up. It gives me a chance really to find out, number one, what I'm okay at, what I'm decent at, and number two, what I'm interested in, whether that be being in the studio or calling games. So the unique kind of setup of the opportunity intrigued me. The people, that I have the opportunity to learn from while I'm up there, whether it be in New York or whether it be calling games, all of the stars aligned for it. And at the same time, I've learned throughout my NFL career that a lot of crazy things can happen during the season, right? A lot of weird things can go on. And so, keeping options available and just being prudent with that, I thought was the right, way to go. And we'll see how it shakes out in terms of the football side of it. But I'm excited to start working with folks at CBS and to start diving into this next chapter.
Well, first off, I think you're going to be excellent at it because you're such a bright guy. But is this something that you wanted to do? And did you have an audition? Did you do any prep for it? Or was it just like, hey, I'm Matt Ryan, I'm super articulate, this will work out?
It was a little more complicated than that.
Well, I mean, come on, that's why you're here to provide that analysis, man.
No, it was, I had always kind of thought about it, but I think when you're playing quarterback in the NFL, it's somewhere way in the back. You're so focused on what you're doing. And I had the opportunity after the season to go up and do some studio work with CBS during the playoffs. And it intrigued me. It really did. I think it started to scratch that itch. And I found somewhere deep in the back of the brain, this could be something that I'd be interested in, moving forward. But to me, it's about the people. And so, getting to know the people behind the scenes, starting to meet with them, at different points of the off season, and really talking about what it could look like moving forward, and the positions that they were looking for, the things that they thought I could help with, the things I was interested in, the things that I want to do. I think, it all kind of just aligned. And, I'm thankful for this opportunity and really now starting to get to work, of trying to figure out how to best do this moving forward.
I always find it interesting, especially for quarterbacks going into the media world, because you guys spend so much time studying, so much time preparing, and you're also very secretive. As someone who used to be a beat reporter and would try to get information out of whether it was Kirk Cousins or some of the other guys that I covered, occasionally they give you a nugget, but typically it was after the game, and it's like, all right, here's what I saw, here's what we were looking at. You don't get the good stuff during the week. How does that preparation change now that you're going to be the whole reason you're preparing is to share the information with people?
It's very different. It's very different. It's not about kind of hiding all that you're doing during the week. It's now trying to look at what other people are doing and explain the whys, tell the story of what they're trying to accomplish, how they're trying to accomplish, what certain players they're trying to either use or expose or take advantage of. But that part, I always really loved that part of it, right? During the week, getting prepared, having an understanding of what we were trying to attack, how we were going to do it, and then, pulling it all together, trying to piece our pieces into that. To me, that was, that was such a part of my day to day, and such a part of the enjoyment that I got out of playing that position. Um, that I think it's a natural move to kind of stay in that flow, state of watching film and trying to break down what teams are doing. So I've got to work on trying to articulate it. I think I've always said as a quarterback to other players, I don't care what you say, I don't care what you can draw on the board, I care what you do. And now it has changed. Now it really matters what I can say and how I can explain it, and less about what I can do. And that part of it is going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I was only with you for a year, but I always felt like you had a really good knack for that. New guys coming into the system, kind of bringing them along, and I feel like it's going to be really similar. And a couple times while you've been talking, you said it. This opportunity aligns with things that you want to do. Of the things that they've kind of positioned for you, what are the things that you're most excited about doing?
Well, I think, there's a definite interest in calling games.
Sure.
And, having the opportunity to do that next year, I think will be a great challenge. There's so many moving parts that go on kind of behind the scenes. That part intrigues me. The pace at which it goes, I really like.
Yeah.
I've always liked that idea of you prepare all week and then you get this 3-hour window to go show whether that preparation was worth it or not. And so I like that idea of it. But the studio side of it is also interesting to me too, because having gone up and done it, and then, watching games while they're going on, having to commentate about what you see from the first half, what adjustments you might see, breaking down plays, and sometimes, trying to educate, fans on the why of certain play calls or decisions that people are making. I really like that part too. That strategy side of it, the game planning side of it, has always been something that has fascinated me. So the ability to do both this first year,
cool.
and really get a feel for what makes sense long term. I feel lucky. I feel a bit like a kid going to college where I have no idea what my major is going to be, but I get to take a bunch of those courses at the beginning, figure out what I like, and then go from there. And luckily, I'm a lot more mature than I was when I was 18, so I hopefully will make a much better decision than I did in college. But finally, my communications degree from Boston College is paying off.
I was going to say, what was the ultimate
season.
decision? Communications major, huh?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm saying that I started in the business school, the CSUN, Carroll School of Management, and I was the starting quarterback as a redshirt sophomore, so I was in my junior year, and I was already into like the major part of it. I took this course, Business Applied Statistics, during the football season. About halfway through it, I was like, this is not for me. I am not, I don't think I can do this. And I switched over to the communication school and finished with the degree in communications. And in all honesty, it couldn't have worked out better, making that switch for what I had to do in the NFL, being, in front of the camera so much. And now, sliding into this portion of it, hopefully I can draw back on some of the things that I learned there at BC and make my parents happy that, that degree wasn't wasted.
Yeah, I don't think Logan, 10 years for you. Matt, would you 15 or so years
15.
for you?
Yeah.
Any applied statistics in your NFL career? No.
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 Here's the thing. I've been busting down people for relying too heavily on statistics for 15 years. Like, don't give me this BS with the statistics. Show me the results. Did we win?
Yeah.
Did we lose? Who cares about the stats?
That's funny. All right, so Matt, I want to talk a little ball with you, and then I got one question, and I want to get the hell out the way because, I'm very anti-clickbait. I know what the people want, and they want you and Logan to talk ball. So I'm going to ask my one question. I'm going to get out the way for a few minutes and let you guys talk ball. But you obviously faced Ron Rivera twice a year for all those years that you were in Atlanta, and he was in Carolina, and prepared for what was really his defense. Although he was the head coach, he was very hands-on in Carolina. That is not how he has approached things here, and you did face this team last year with the Colts. Sam Ehlinger obviously started that game, but you were in all the meetings and helping Sam prepare. What differences do you see from the defense that Rivera used to run in Carolina compared to the one that Jack Del Rio is essentially running under him here in DC?
Yeah, I think, I played against Ron so often in Carolina, and I mean, there were some incredible defenses, great players. Luke Kuechly, comes to mind of just, guy in the middle that kind of made it go for them. And then, going against Jack all those years too, whether it was, in Denver or in Oakland or now Vegas. I saw a lot of those guys during my career. I think both of them have evolved. I think the game's different. There's no question about that. From when I first got into the league in 2008 to where it is now, and how offenses are trying to attack defenses is much different. And I think you've seen both of these guys evolve. They're playing a lot more single high safety than what we saw when they were in Carolina. I mean, my experience of going against those Carolina defenses was they were playing a cover 4 shell, trying to keep things in front but be aggressive on the outside. And when we played Washington last year, there was a little bit of that, but for the most part, they were a single safety outfit and playing man-to-man coverage and playing 3-deep zone. So they're a little bit different, but the thing that you're always going to have with those two coaches is they're going to be sound in run fits. It starts and ends there, on the defensive side of the ball. And so whether it's in their blitz packages, whether it's in their base, 4-down front stuff, they're going to be sound fitting the run. And I think they've always done a nice job of that. I thought they were a really good defense last year. As we were preparing for them, and getting ready to go, they had a lot of pieces, a lot of different guys that were out there making plays, and they were playing aggressive. And, they kept the team in it the day we played them with the Colts, and gave Heineke a chance there at the end, and he comes up with this, miracle play at the end of the game. But I like what their defense is doing. I've always, appreciated Ron as a head coach. I think he's a good man. He's tough to go against. Had to go, against him, too often, but they're going to be sound, and they're going to continue to be sound for as long as he's there.
Yeah, and something that I think is interesting, you mentioned like this transition to single high, and like this is a little bit of a football nerdy question. And with that single high, there's been a lot of like this cover 3 match, which kind of gets bastardized into like this cover 6, and like it's really, really hard to tell what defenses are in oftentimes. And I just wanted to know, like, how does that affect you as a quarterback? Because you're kind of, teams are moving away from this, like, oh, we're in quarters, and here are the 4 segments, and here's cover 2, and here's cover 3, and it's becoming much more harder to diagnose because they're kind of in this in between with this match principle. So just like, what challenges does that face, and how do you prepare for that?
Yeah, I wish we could go back. I wish we could go back to you knew exactly what you were looking at. Here's cover 4. I'm throwing this post. Don't worry about it. Let it fly. But you're right. I think the league has shifted to a lot more hybrid coverages. And you talk about that cover 6 and that cover 3, that 3 match. Depending on where the high safety is, you really can't tell.
It looks the same, man. It looks the same.
There's a lot of difficulty in determining whether or not that guy's playing middle field, or whether he's cheating to a side, or whether it's truly a half to that boundary side. And so it's difficult. I always go back to, it probably shifted for me, year 6, year 7, where you started to see a lot more of these combination coverages, where it was maybe a little bit of man over here, maybe a little bit of zone on this side. There were different principles within that. And it really became about reading spots. And Logan, you can go back to this of having played for Kyle Shanahan. One of the things that changed for me when he came in was, hey, let's have a good idea of what they're doing in the back end, but let's not obsess over it.
Right.
Let's read spots. Let's understand, if we think it's split safety, we're going to start on this side, but we're going to work our progression. If we think it's single high, we're going to start over here. And then we would always have the caveat of, if I knew nothing, if I have zero idea what they're in, because if you're being real, there's times where that's the case. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if there's 3 buzz. I'm not really sure, where they're at. So I would always have the caveat in there. Hey, what's my progression if I know nothing?
Yeah.
What if I have zero idea what's my progression? And then you really start to read spots. And I think the more you get those combination coverages, the more you see kind of amoeba shells in the back end, the more it's about starting in spots, trusting your progressions. If it's not there, check the ball down or run.
And can you elaborate that, like reading spots? Because I think a lot of people say, oh, I'm reading, I'm reading the corner, I'm reading here. But like with Kyle, you're just like you're reading, you're attacking like an area of the field, right? And so could you just kind of go into that process a little bit more and why that helps you out in terms of not having to know exactly what's happening?
Yeah, I think it's so huge. They ask so much of you as a quarterback to turn your back,
Right,
and show that run. Whether it's they're doing more of it from the gun now than when I was playing for Kyle, but
right,
even still, you're shrinking, you're turning your back, and so you don't really have the opportunity to diagnose the post snap.
right,
So it's a lot of your work has to be done pre snap, and then you have to trust it. The thing I think they do a great job of, and when I say seeing spots, we might be attacking 2 yards outside the hash,
right. Yes,
or 2 yards or 4 to 6 yards inside the numbers, and so it gives you this mental. Just picture of as soon as I snap my back, I know exactly where my eyes need to go. And then you've got to assess whether it's muddy or it's not. And know, we would talk about reading with your feet all the time, and know that if that picture 2 yards outside the hash or 4 yards from the number is muddy on my first hitch, it's on to whoever is second in the
right,
progression. If it's muddy on the second hitch, ball's out to the check down or you're running.
right.
And I think that's being very specific with the landmarks that you're trying to attack, I think is important in the league right now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Just those like the landmarks and the zones. And the other thing that I think Kyle, and you could speak to this way better than I could, he's did a great job of is I don't want to say giving the quarterback like easy throws, like easy opportunities off of the play action. And that was such a big feature of kind of saying like, hey, I'm not going to ask you to kind of get back there and be Mozart for 50 snaps. I'm going to give you 5 keepers. I'm going to give you 10 play pass. I'm going to give you 5 quick game. How important is that for you as a quarterback to kind of say, I don't have to be back here, like sometimes you were in Indy just wheeling and dealing for 50 snaps, which is pretty tough ball.
Yeah, it's hard to consistently win that way.
Yeah.
Where you're dropping back, where you're asking your offensive line to protect drop back passing 50, 55 times in a game. You might be able to do it a handful of times, but week in and week out, the D lines are too good. I remember having a meeting with Kyle. This is probably halfway through my first season with him.
Yeah.
And he said, listen, Matt, he said, my job is first and second down. He said, my job is to get guys open for you on first and second down, whether it's keepers, whether it's quick game, whether it's play action pass, whatever it is. That's my responsibility. He's like, where I need you to come to life is on third down and in the red area. And really, as you see the teams that he's been a part of, they do such a good job of creating explosives on first and second down. And like you said, they've got guys running open.
Yeah.
They get guys open. But for them to be successful, you've got to be able to convert those third downs that you need to, and then you've got to be able to make plays in the red area. And I always thought that freed me up as a player. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get 15 pass attempts a game where guys are gonna be open or you're gonna check it down and it's all good, and then there's gonna be another 15 that you really got to go make a play.
Right.
You got to fit one in there, or if you got to find a way to get it done. And I really think he does such a great job with that.
And sorry, I got one more question, Craig. This idea, Kyle, he's a I'm trying to think of the best way to describe him. He's got a high standard. Let's say that. He's got a high standard. You also have a high standard. You also have a very strong opinion. How was that relationship, and how did that improve, like make you better? How did the fact that he was like, I have a very strong perspective of this offense, basically say like, I believe this should be in, even if it makes you uncomfortable? How did that elevate the offense? How did that elevate you? And what was that relationship like?
Finding words. I know I'm in this business now, but finding words is difficult. I think that
because you right now I can tell you're kind of doing this politician thing. Sometimes you just gotta let it rip, man. Just let it
go. No, number one, I'll say this. Number one, the thing I always appreciated about him is you knew exactly where you stood. What there was no gray area. There was zero gray area of how he felt. And I always appreciated that. As a player, you want honest feedback.
Yeah.
All I want is for you to put me in a position to be successful, and I want to play my best. I think that I think that he pushed me to get better. He pushed me outside of my comfort zone. You know, there was a lot of stuff early on. I was like, hey, I haven't really done that, you know, in my career. I haven't, you know, specialized in this, but we've done more of this. And he goes, I don't care, Matt, you can. He's like, I don't care what you've done. I know what you can do, and push me to get better. And I really, you know, I appreciate him for that. As far as our relationship, it was really cool because the first year we were together, it was like we were both kind of feeling each other out. We were kind of being nice to each other or whatever. And then we had this kind of meeting in the off season between my first and second year with him, and we came to the agreement that we both just had to let it out. You know, like if we need to have these back and forth, go at each other, whatever. So we would have the meetings up in the, you know, offensive coordinator spot in the second floor of Flowery Branch, where he'd be just on my ass, you know, getting after me, and I'd be going back at him, and he'd call me on the ride home. So like I would be leaving, I'd be like, man, that was intense, you know. Hopefully it's all good tomorrow. And then he'd call me on the ride home, and he'd be like, dude, that was awesome. Exactly what we needed. We're like in a great spot for install tomorrow. And I'd be like, all right, we're good. So it turned into, you know, a really good, really great relationship. I enjoyed playing for him, but we were both headstrong, you know, and both had great belief in what we were doing. And I really think we both pushed each other to be the best versions of ourselves.
Love it. All right, so we've gotten to some of the stories that I was hoping we'd get to, but I always love to wrap these interviews with former Logan Paulsen teammates with an exchange of stories. So, Logan, I need your best Matt story. Matt, I need your best Logan story. I don't care who goes first. Logan, you muted yourself. That's the one way you can fail at this.
Matt,
there we
failed.
go.
There, I'm back. So I will say, like, Matt, playing for Matt was fantastic. Like, the highest compliment I can give another professional football player is to say he was like the consummate pro. Always prepared, always knew exactly what was doing. And I was like, and I thought I was that way. You know, I thought I was really dialed in. And I remember the first, and so like there's a lot of very positive stories about Matt, like him getting guys lined up, him coaching up, him. And I remember we were doing a walkthrough, and we had just put in all of our code words for Apache, which is like 25 words. And there, I don't remember exactly how we did it, but it was like there was like a formational word and there was a play word. So it was a little bit different than other places I've been, right? And I was like, okay. And I remember going up to him because I was studying and we had just got the install and I was really pouring over it. And I go, hey, Matt, like we were just on the first play. I was like, hey, Matt, can you just be a little bit more deliberate just for today, just for the walkthrough? And Matt looks at me, and I remember Austin Hooper was standing right there, and he goes, that you match my speed. And then we just went right to the walkthrough. And I was like, all right, I better be dialed in. And I was like, but it was like, but that's how he was, man. And like, I respected the out of that because like, that was something that was his standard. He wasn't going to compromise his standard for anything. And like, that made the offense better. So I always think back on that story and just being like, oh, like, I better remember all those Rolodex words. Sorry for all the profanity there. But yeah.
Yeah, Nick, sorry you now have to edit a bunch, but good story. Good job, Logan. Matt,
Dude,
do you have
that's funny.
Your favorite Logan Paulsen story?
I always laugh because I feel like people are always like, Matt, you know, like you're the nicest guy. Like, you know, what's it like you playing football? I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think you know me that well.
But you were always really. But that's the thing. You were always nice. Like I remember you'd say and you'd play ping pong in the locker room, and like you were very. Despite who you were always very accessible and approachable. But when it was like, let's be ready to go, it was like, let's be ready to go. And that's totally reasonable, I think. So, you know.
That's why I love Logan. I agree with you. To me, it wasn't too hard. I always felt like, listen, have fun, do all you got to do. But when it's time to work, it's time to work. And, you know, let's not waste any of that time. I think my favorite Logan story is, well, first of all, I got to say, he's a consummate pro. I mean, there's no doubt about it. That compliment, you know, probably gets thrown around a little too much, but like, I agree with him. There's certain guys that you play with that just do everything right. From taking care of their body to the training, to how they approach walkthroughs, how they approach meetings. You know, they just do it right. And Logan was that guy. And he was always one of the guys for me. It was like, you don't have to worry about, you know, as a quarterback, you've got to have a great idea of the guys that you're playing with. And like, all right, he might not have had it the first walkthrough for our code words on our no huddle, but like by day 3, he's going to be fine, but there are certain guys that doesn't matter how many walkthroughs you do, they're not going to know it. And so, you've got to just continue to work with those guys. But I always appreciated that. It took a load off my plate playing with them. But my favorite story is, I think we were playing Cincinnati. Was it Cincinnati?
That's not what depends on the story, but maybe we were playing Cincinnati.
So Logan catches this touchdown.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was Cincinnati. Yep,
it was Cincinnati. So we put in this play, and it was like, I think we called it Hoss Juke or something like that. I can't remember what we called it in that offense, but Logan's on a seam, right? So he's our vertical threat, taking the top off the defense.
Digging out, guys.
We're talking in the week. I don't think we ever said it in the install with those guys, but they're like, listen, Logan's not even in the progression. He's taking the top off this thing. We're trying to work this little option route down. And they bust this coverage.
Bad.
And I mean, he is screaming wide open.
I wasn't even supposed to be on the play. They were supposed to sub somebody else in because I thought I was too slow to run this route. Just for the context here for everybody.
So he's screaming wide open. And I'm like, Matt, throw it at his back shoulder. You might hit him in stride. If you try and back shoulder him. Threw it right at him. He catches it. It was an awesome touchdown. Yeah. Just the celebration afterwards was so much fun. For me, it was always fun celebrating the touchdowns with the guys that didn't score them all the time. Like
take that, Julio Jones.
Yeah, and I'm not, I'm saying that, but like your role for us was you did the dirty work, and when you see guys that do the dirty work get rewarded for it, that was really cool. Something I'll never forget. Caveman. Yeah. And the caveman was in there in the end zone celebrating. It was awesome.
And that was back when I was about 280, and running was tough at that point, boys. So nice to get a bone like that. Yeah, for sure.
I love it. All right, well, you can catch Matt this season on CBS, whether it's in the booth calling games, in studio with the guys up in New York. Matt, this was great. Hopefully we can do it again. Appreciate the time, and welcome to the media. Welcome to the dark side.
Yeah. Thank you, fellas. I appreciate it. Anytime. I'd love to come on.
Phenomenal stuff there from Matt Ryan. Lots of editing for our producer, Nick. Thanks to Logan, but, it is what it is.
It is what it is. A lot of bleeps and blurps, but that's okay. Matt's an excellent guy, man. I'm really excited for him. That's going to be a really cool opportunity. Got a ton of great insight. I remember, I didn't say this on the show, but I remember he'd come in with Matt Schaub on, what was that, Monday? No, so Tuesday after the game, and when everyone's kind of on their off day, and they would do their own game plan prep and being there like all day just prepping. And the two of them kind of working in tandem, kind of one would do third down, one would do red zone, one would do first and second down. It was pretty impressive. So his preparation is going to be amazing. He's going to have awesome insights. So really, I can't wait to hear what he's got because he's going to do an awesome job. So.
Yeah, and actually the Commanders' schedule this year obviously came out, a week ago. There's a lot more CBS games. There's a definitive chance that we get some Matt Ryan commentary on a game this year, just because the way this is all super nerdy, like inside baseball stuff, but like the way the broadcast deals work this year, there's less ties of NFC to Fox and AFC to CBS. There's still some, but there's I want to say almost half the Commanders' games are on CBS this year. So there's definitely a chance that we would. I mean, obviously we can have Matt on whenever he's able to do it. It would take him every week if we could.
Right.
But whether he's doing studio work and the game's on CBS or whether he's calling a game, we'll definitely have him back during the season, if not before. So that was really great. Any other things from either the substance of what he said or just Matt Ryan's stuff that we want to tack on before our second part of our podcast today is going to be an interview I did yesterday with John Keim. Tell you more about that in a second. But anything else from
just
Matt?
I hope he does. I hope he's calling games. I really think that's I know he's trying to figure out what he wants to do, but like his insight and the way he sees the game is so unique, and I think he's got like a very kind of pithy delivery, which will be good. Kind of like I think he'll have some of that Romo insight, but be able to kind of get it out a little bit more consistently. And I think he'd be excellent at it. Obviously, he's got to figure out what he wants to do, but if that happens, I'll be really excited.
Yeah, as will I. I think that's 100% correct. The speed at which a quarterback can see the game, because that's the thing is I don't think people realize is I can watch a game on film, rewind it 6 times, and kind of
and
figure
see.
out what the coverage is and that kind of stuff. But if I'm watching the game from a broadcast booth, the ability to know where to look and what to look for instantaneously, and also some of that comes with the ability based off down distance, situation, coverage, personnel to have some of that pre-snap insight. I
Yeah,
don't have that. I didn't play
yeah,
in the NFL. Like, just because you watch tape, and I'm not saying that there's not people that do a great job based off of watching tape, but the ability to do that in real time is a completely different animal, as you well know from playing and now starting to call some games. And obviously you'll be doing the pregame or the preseason for the Commanders this year from the sideline.
yeah.
But like that kind of insight is just a different level. And someone like Matt, who's been doing it from under center for all these years, would be so phenomenal at it. So I'm very, very excited to see him do that.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting thing, to your point about the quarterback seeing it in real time, I think that's true because, like, I was used to seeing it with my hand in the ground, kind of a very specific picture. They see the whole thing, and it's a skill, and he's got 15 years of data accumulated in that area. So I think he's going to be very good at it. And the other thing, you said anything interesting stuck out. I think the interesting thing was the throwing to spots thing. It was
Yeah.
interesting. Like, I've always thought about that, and I've always kind of intuited that, but to hear him articulate that was really, really compelling, I thought. And just shows you like how complicated defenses are, because like there isn't a necessity to know exactly what's going on. If that spot of the field is open, you can just make the throw. So that was super interesting and great insight by him for sure.
Yeah, I definitely want to see if we can get like some offensive coaches or other folks on to talk about that, because it's super in depth, but it's so fascinating because we spend so much time trying to figure out, was it cover 2, was it cover 4, cover 6, cover 3, cover 1, is it man, is it zone, and sometimes it's just really hard to tell on tape.
Yeah.
But what he tells you is it doesn't really matter.
Like, in certain situations,
in certain situations, it's just like, is the guy that the defender that I'm reading in this specific spot in the spot that I'm reading, or is he out of the picture? And if he's out of the picture, I can make the throw. If he's in the picture, I got to get on to the next thing. And the way it's timed with the footwork and everything, that was really, really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And it's again, like it's just one of those things like where that's where the coaching comes in. It's like, hey, these are our best things versus these coverages. The quarterback doesn't need to know exactly what they're in, and we can just say attack these spots. We'll decide the route concepts to beat the coverages, and we'll go from there, which I think is really compelling. So that was awesome insight, and just an awesome.
I also love that he's like, we had a plan if I didn't have a clue. Like that's really like different than anything else I've ever heard. It's always like, oh, I couldn't figure it out. It's like, okay, well then what?
Yeah.
And sometimes the plan is like run,
yeah.
but having a plan for when things go wrong, considering how frequently things go wrong in the NFL because defenses are really good, like you should start to unlock of why that guy was so good and why a coach like Kyle, who's the one who kind of gave him that idea, is so good.
And also those coaching points, because they do so much play action in that offense, I think is also interesting because you're not going to be able to know exactly what the coverage is. So it's like, there's the landmark, there's the spot. Is it open? Yes or no? No, I'm on my second hitch. Let's get to the flat. That's closed. Let's get to the check down. So it just simplifies everything if you think about it. Like when you're thinking spots as opposed to, I have to beat this coverage and know exactly what's happening. So yeah, I love that insight by him, and good luck to him, and hopefully that just absolutely murders, and I think it will. So good.
Yeah, no, he's going to be great. All right, big story for the Commanders this week. Obviously, the ongoing in slow motion, hopefully speeding up soon. Sale. There's a chance that it gets done next week in Minneapolis. I think at this point it's unlikely. Much more likely to be a month or two down the road until the full thing gets finalized. But we now have an idea, thanks to a leaked document to ESPN, about what the Harris Group sees, and what they see is a whole lot of money as soon as Dan Snyder is no longer in charge of the team. Some interesting quotes, by the way, from Jason Wright in that story as well. It's like, Dan knows that the Snyders aren't stupid. They know as soon as they're gone, there's going to be more money for the team because of everything that they've done and all the investigations and all the things they're alleged to have done over the years. When the clouds lift, there's going to be a financial windfall. But seeing the actual numbers as well as some of the timelines around a stadium were super, super fascinating. And we got that thanks to this leaked prospectus to ESPN.com. The story is written by Seth Wickersham of ESPN The Magazine and our good friend John Keim. John joined me on Tuesday on the Hoffman Show on the radio. And we thought, rather than rehashing some of that for the podcast, what better than to hear from the original source? So here's my chat with John from the radio show, and that'll be this week's edition of Take Command. To be honest, when we came up with the idea for this segment, it was for days like this. Our guy, John Keim, Cakes, my good buddy, joins us to talk about the story he co-wrote with Seth Wickersham on ESPN.com, a leaked prospectus from the Harris Group that shows the potential for a financial windfall when they take over simply by removing Dan Snyder. John, I think this is your first time live on the show. Welcome.
Oh, well, good. Where are the trumpets celebrating that?
Anthony, where are the trumpets? Did you forget the trumpets? Anthony left his trumpet at home. What a shame.
Okay.
What a shame. So I know you can't give up sources and methods, if you will, but when all of a sudden you find yourself staring at this document, like what's going through your head once you see, one, like, oh my God, I have this. And obviously you're working on that with Seth, but also like seeing some of the numbers. What are some of the things that stood out to you?
Well, yeah, and for me, it's looking at the numbers. And first of all, like the Harris Group prepares, my understanding is that they typically prepare a prospectus when you're looking for limited partners to invest because they come from the private equity firm world, and it's what they would do when they take over corporations or whatever, and it's what they've done in the past. Part of what makes this interesting is that you may be looking at more people needing to do this to buy into the NFL because the price of where it's going. So we'll start there. But as far as like the numbers that jump out is as much the tumble in terms of attendance and revenue, the local revenue, how much it had fallen. And then obviously their projections are going to be their projections, but they're pretty rosy. And I don't know that a lot of people would disagree with where they could go and the impact when they eventually open a new stadium as well. So, I think, like I said, so the big numbers to me, the tumble, like it's been like, I would say in the last 10 years, it's like a 50% drop in the local revenue. And I think they project it to go up by about 50% over the next 7 years or so.
Yeah, that was one thing that stuck out to me, John, is the stadium information. The first was that they, right. There is a chance to rename FedEx Field. And I just wanted
that's the other one.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of a point of clarification on the way the story was worded. It says with a change of ownership that there's a right to change. Is that something that FedEx
Correct.
would have to do, or is that something that the Harris Group could say, hey, we're in charge now?
Yeah, my understanding is that FedEx could get out of it if there's a change in ownership, and they believe they've been trying to get out of that. So I think that's where it would be. But yes, they can then change it. And then right now FedEx is it's 7.45 or
I think 7.6.
7.6. Thank you. All right, I have a lot of numbers in my head right now. So
I luckily enough have them on a computer screen in front of me.
So right, and so the projection could be as much as 30 per year, they believe. And so that's obviously a sizable difference. And that's why when you're looking at a return on investment, those are some of the things you're going to try and do right away. And then you brought up the stadium. I think that was the other thing that jumped out to me was their projection for revenue from a stadium doesn't begin until 2031. Now, that's noteworthy. Now, I will say this. That's a conservative timetable by them. And they did even note on there that it could be earlier. So to me, that's like probably the latest they would look at it opening. But that's noteworthy because here they've been looking at 2027, 2028, thinking that once you get your place, you can break ground and it's 5 years. They're looking at it longer than that. And part of it is because I think they want to absolutely do their due diligence on it and not rush into a situation. So, it could be another year or so before they really find the place they want. I don't know, but it could be. And then it's like, then how long does it take once you break ground and what are you doing with it? How, et cetera. And I know Seth had talked to some people who believe it may even take longer than that based on some other stadiums that have been built over the last several years.
Right. John Keim, ESPN.com with us. And so that is the kind of the interesting thing, right? In the prospectus, it says this is kind of a conservative estimate. It could happen sooner. And then Seth talks to some folks, as you just said, that say not the way stadiums are going now. This could take even longer. And I think part of that is going to obviously depend on how much work has been done already, how much behind the scenes has, whether it's Harris, Rails, Magic. Magic obviously talked to Wes Moore at some point recently. There's these numbers from the state of Virginia, so you'd have to think there's been some conversations with the Commonwealth on potential there. What sense do you have on how much work has already been done so they can hit the ground running fairly immediately on that? Not just in terms of where the location is, but what they want to build, because they have to decide, is it just a stadium? Is it stadium and practice facility, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, and I think if I had to guess right now, the practice facility would probably be separate from where the building is, depending on I could see a scenario where they have a stadium, whether it's in FedEx, where it is now, or even in the district, but the practice facility remains in Virginia. That is a definite scenario. But I think, until they're on board, we don't really know what their vision is. I know this is in talking to some people who are, who've been involved in this process. But as far as the stadium goes, like what it would entail, it's hard to really know. I know, listen, you're not entering into a situation like this without having some level of input being made or information being sought, right? And there are clearly people here who have been working on the stadium, Joe Maloney and Jason Wright, for a while. And so their information will help without a doubt. But, you're still going to have to go through and meet and feel comfortable with what meaning Josh Harris and whomever else is involved there. So while there would be information already known, and I think perhaps like the locales, Virginia, Maryland, D.C., could start getting their situations more clear as to what they would offer or what incentives or inducements, whatever. And, I think that stuff is already being done. So that will help. But these guys still have to go through the process. And it is a top priority for them. And I think that's why it's funny, because I was talking to somebody earlier on Harris' side and bringing up the 2031 estimate. It's like, to me, when there have been people still here thinking maybe 2028, it does suggest that they want to take a patient approach to get it right.
So you have been going to work in various Commanders, Washington football, et cetera, locales for the past 25 years. And I think one of the interesting things in the story that I will tie back to you going to work there, every day during the season for the last 25 years in a moment, is when Harris took over the Sixers. In your story, it says that they did about $88 million worth of upgrades on all kinds of different things, a lot of that at the practice facility. As you've watched that building in Ashburn evolve over that time that you've been going there and seen it through different coaches, GMs, now you'll be on your third owner here. Like, what are some of the things that you think they can do and should do immediately versus things that they might wait on to ultimately get a new facility for the players to call home every day?
Well, here's what I would say, Craig. I think if they come in and say, like, the practice facility will be separate, you can work on that right away. So I would invest the time and energy into doing that, because it's going to be a lot easier to find a location and then the area to build with that. So you could do that a lot sooner than you could a new stadium. It doesn't necessarily have to be tied into the stadium and the facility going to open in 2031. If you know where it's going to be built, or if you know that, listen, regardless of where the stadium is going to be built, this is where the practice facility will be built, I would invest the money there. Now, there's clearly some things that you could do in the facility that they have done over the years. With the field was a big one a few years ago. They have upgraded some of the kitchen, the cafeteria and all that. But I think there's always more you could probably do in terms of maybe. I know there's a desire to update some of the technology there, and maybe make it a little bit more state of the art if you can. But if you know you're going to move out soon, I don't know that you're going to see a great deal of investment, because you can build that again a lot quicker than you could a new stadium. And so to maximize your investment, you may want to do that. But again, that's something that it's hard to say until they're voted in and they can talk publicly about those plans. It's just kind of conjecture or speculation.
Right. John Keim, ESPN.com with us. Do you think, John, this is the hard-hitting journalism that we do on this show, the turf field with all the deer poop, can that finally go at least?
I think that thing's going to last until the bitter end. It's amazing for people who have never been out there.
Why?
Well, now for here, you know what? I mean, I don't know, but
I don't know is the correct answer. There's no good reason.
Well, the reason why you don't do it now is because the cost involved, and they don't use it, and they have 3 fields there, and they've updated the other fields they installed new turf, and they improved the drainage. They didn't have the drainage system out there was really bad.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, it didn't drain. So you go out. There were times where literally there'd be like a foot of water. It'd be covered in water, and that was years ago, right? But that's something that I think you can, over the last couple of years, they definitely improved that. But with that turf field now, it just seems to be a place where when you have groups out there, that's where you're going to put the tents. And but it is not one that you want to run around a lot on.
No. What lasts longer, your career covering the Commanders, the turf field, or Keith Richards?
Oh, God. I mean, Keith Richards will outlast everybody.
That's the correct answer. That's 100%. Yeah. Robin Williams had a great.
Turf will be nice. Listen, they should almost whatever they do with that facility, and once assuming they sell it, let's say they sell it, whoever buys it needs to somehow preserve that turf field and just hold events on it once in a while.
Just put the team Hall of Fame there or something. Robin Williams had a great bit in one of his stand-up specials about how Keith Richards is going to be the last human being on Earth after a nuclear apocalypse with a bunch of cockroaches just looking at him going, hey, I smoked your uncle.
When you mentioned him, the first thing I thought of was it's like a cockroach. They're just going to be here forever. Not that he's a cockroach, but it's same kind of thing. So yes, I think he will.
Keith Richards is the correct answer. John Keim, ESPN.com, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Okay, let's do the thing that everybody cares about the most. On the football side of this, now that we have a little bit better idea of a timeline, we still don't know for sure. This thing could get done in Minneapolis. Unlikely to get fully done there, but it's possible, I guess. And then sometime kind of 90-day-ish window where this thing probably gets done. What is on hold right now for Ron Rivera and the football side, and what things can proceed?
Well, one of the things on hold would be the naming of the offensive line coach. So eventually it'll be Travell Wharton, but that's something they want to get approved. That would be an ownership approval thing, and so they're waiting for that to get there. So there's some coaching staff maneuvering. The staff is in place, but it's just more getting the titles, et cetera. That's on hold. You're not going to suddenly extend, I don't think, a Montez Sweat or Cam Curl right now until you get probably some clarity and direction from a new owner. But that's me just saying that it makes sense versus hearing it directly from them, right? So, gotcha. But that would make sense that it would be hard. Like if you're going to do a deal with Montez Sweat and you're going to have to, give a lot of guaranteed money or whomever, and whether it's him or Cam, you're not going to want him to do that without a new owner's approval, at least to say, okay, yes, go ahead and do it, right? And, doesn't mean the guy has to say, well, wait a minute, I don't like how Montez rushes the passer. He needs to develop this move. He's not going to do that. But you do, it is a lot of money. So you do want to make sure that they understand why you're doing it. And so at this point, there's no rush because if you can be talking to Montez Sweat's side, for example, and understand and get an idea of what both sides can do or are willing to do. And then when the time comes, you can go to a Josh Harris and say, this is what we want to do. Is that okay?
So along those lines, as you said, Harris, I don't think is going to come in with strong opinions on pass rush styles. But it's very clear from this prospectus that you and Seth reported on today that they have a very clear vision of where they can take the business, certain opportunities. They have a clear understanding of a lot of stuff. How much
Correct.
do you think that they know on the football side? Because they'd be doing it from the outside. As far as we know, Ron Rivera, outside of maybe a quick hello, has not spoken to Josh Harris. There certainly hasn't been like a large debriefing at this point on the direction of the football operation, what has done and what is planned on being done should Rivera stay. So what kind of understanding do you think this group has of the football operation, and thus how long will they be evaluating before they make any kind of move, big or small?
That's a good question. It's hard for me to say how much. Like, what I would say is, from what I've heard for a while, is they're going to take the year to evaluate. I don't think they're going to come in and make any sort of rash move. So I'm sure that they, if you're doing this, you're going to be talking to people about what someone else feels the situation is like. But I think if you're also a savvy businessman, then you're going to come in and see what your experience is with them. And so that has always been my understanding of what will happen, whether it's the football side or the business side. And keep in mind, too, again, if it doesn't happen until, let's say, July, well, you can't come in then and change things. It's not a good time to do that. And so, they're going to get the season to evaluate. So whatever they have, whatever preconceived ideas or notions, it'll be confirmed or debunked over the course of a year. So this group, whatever they think, this group will get a chance to prove that they should stay or go.
Yeah, the timing of that dictates, which, by the way, is, that's a whole separate rant that I've done on the show of the NFL dragging its feet throughout this whole thing, kind of costs the Commanders this offseason. But at the end of the day, we are where we are.
Yeah, and I don't know what they could have done differently. Like, you weren't going to get a sale like this in February. And
sure, I just meant like when all of this stuff came out, or even at the Wilkinson report, which obviously was very bad, even though it got buried. Like, they gave him the largest fine in the history of the league. There was clearly a lot there. Like, could you have forced a sale if the owners had the chutzpah to actually vote him out? This could have been done a long time ago. Versus
they were never going to do it over that investigation. That's so like it's what you always have to do with the owners is it's the pocketbook. And, it may not be the what people want to hear, but it's also the truth.
Sure.
So they weren't ready to vote him out at that time.
I understand all that. That doesn't make any of it right. I'm not saying you are saying that it does. That was the opportunity, and the opportunity cost from the football side is ultimately this has drawn out into now yet another full off season where the Commanders have had, January through, really November when he announced the sale and kind of went to London and never came back, through now where the Ron Rivera and company have been operating without an owner and just had to kind of do the best that they can. Last thing I want to ask you, John, I know you're a huge NBA guy. Obviously, we had so many basketball conversations out in the media annex over the years. Sixers just wrapped their season. The Devils had a very successful season. How much do you take out of this Harris Blitzer group's other sports and how they'll approach this? Or is the NFL wholly unique and you think they'll operate in a different way than they have in the NBA and the NHL?
I don't know that they'll operate differently, but I don't know that, I don't think approach changes, but I do think you have to be cognizant of the league that you're in. And the NFL is unique, and it's more powerful. It's more, it's just more. It's, there's more exposure. There's more attention paid to it. So you do have to understand that. And it's also, as you know, these organizations are put together differently. In the NBA, you need those superstars. There are certain things that you have to do to get the Joel Embiids or guys like that, because that's how you ultimately build a top contender. In the NFL, there's just, it's really about putting together. There's obviously more players, and the quarterback's a huge deal. But you have to construct it differently and take the different things into consideration, right? And so, but I don't think their approach will change. I think the approach should be is you hire the right people and you let them do their jobs. That seems to be, based on the people I've talked to, what they have done in Philly and New Jersey for the most part. Like, I don't think you're going to have Josh Harris in there telling people to change a draft grade on a quarterback, for example.
That never happened, John.
So I don't think you're going to have that. So I think like that. That's the approach that you take. Now, but I also think one of the things that you have to do here is make sure you have people who understand and know the NFL and can understand the rhythms of the season. What if you're on the marketing side, what you're asking players to do and when and why, or why it might not be a good time to ask that, for example. So little things like that, just understanding the rhythms. But that's also, like I said, so the NBA will be different than the NFL, different than the NHL. But I don't think your approach as an owner will change. Like one of the things, David Elfin had written a story for Bethesda magazine, I think it was, years ago, where he had talked to Mark Ein and Josh Harris. And one of the things Harris said in there is he did believe in setting up an organization with a GM and then a coach. Now, obviously, here's the coach and then the GM. Does that mean he's going to come in and do that automatically? I don't know. But, and if it's working this year, then you don't. But if they do want to change, I think you can look at that sort of a structure, right? So, I think the structure and the approach, the way you approach it, I don't think will change. But you do have to adapt and understand that the NFL is different than the NBA and is different than the NHL.
No, 100%. Also, I have had lots of chuckles over the last couple of days as Philly fans and people who just hate the Sixers because of the process have freaked out because they have won 50 games 4 times in the last 6 years and then flamed out in the second round in most of those years. If the Commanders win 12 games 4 of the next 6 years at any point in the next decade, or 4 of 6, and then just, oh my God, they lose in the second round of the playoffs, do you realize how happy this fan base would be? John, how happy you would be covering that many playoff games?
Yeah, no, it would certainly be different. Craig, I have never covered a team that has won 11 games in a season, in the regular season. I've covered this team since 1994.
Wow.
That says quite a bit. And so, yeah, and I know it's all perspective, right? I mean, I would talk to fans on the road last year, and I'd be like, I just want to win. I just want to see them win a playoff game. That's it. And, but once you do that, what's next?
Right.
Like I'm a Cavs fan. Was this year good enough? Maybe, but it won't be next year.
Right.
And you can say like, well, just look at how bad it was. Yeah, it was bad, but now the expectations have gone up. However, I think what fans.
Oh, no. Did John's phone? Oh, no, John, I think we got you now. Nope.
Sorry, yes, you got me.
There we go. Now we got you.
Yeah, sorry. So I would say I think the bar is kind of low. It's don't be investigated. Build a good product that fans can take pride in again. And for a long time, as you know, they haven't been winning, and they haven't been able to fans can't take pride in being fans of this franchise. And so that's what I think has to take place. And that's, I definitely get the sense from dealing with people in this group that they understand where this fan base is at and what the things that they want to do to invest in that. And I know some fans are going to say name. That's not on the top of the list, but I think what they understand more than anything is the need, what they have to do is build something good. And if you don't, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, the honeymoon will end.
If they do, then that's what matters most. And for some people, they may not come back because they just got tired or whatever. But they also have to focus on also building up a new generation of fans.
Yeah.
And so that's where if you can build a winning team and create some excitement here. And I don't think it would be that hard. Craig, people here know, and the organization now know, this city was ready to embrace them again going into before that Giants game in December.
Yeah.
And then they lost. But they were ready to embrace them. So these people are ready to jump. My sense, talk to every fan, and certainly fans are going to have different perspectives. But I do think, if you can build it right, and and Dan Snyder's out, because we know for a lot of people that was a number one thing for them, that people will hop back on. I don't think that the love for football here is gone. I think it was just hellacious wearing out and exhaustion of losing, of issues, and then I also think, Craig, too, some of it was you'd have these hopes that would extinguish pretty quick. RG3 going to be here for 10 years, making magic, and then it's 1 year, and then that's it. Scott McLuhan comes here, and then that was a problem, right? Kirk Cousins does well, but then he leaves because the contract never was going to match up with where each side was at. So, you know what I mean? So, one thing after another, and then it's enough. And then the investigations, right? So avoid those, build a winner, and people will be back.
No doubt. And I think something that's pointed out in the prospectus and some other numbers, Evan Novi-Williams, our buddy from Sportico, had a great chart the other day. It wasn't really till Kirk left, and there's obviously other stuff that was happening. McLuhan, kind of at the same time. That was when the revenue fell off. So it's not that long ago that people were still willing to give it a shot.
Correct. Listen, it was the funny thing is that was the year where I think people just got tired of that whole discussion with Kirk, but which followed the downfall of RG3. And then so I think people got worn out, but yes, you're right. It was, and if Alex Smith doesn't get hurt, Craig, who knows, does this really go down? And I've talked, I know people here think if Alex Smith doesn't get hurt, this group isn't even here.
Maybe.
In coaching staff. We don't know, but the point is they felt he was a good professional quarterback, and you could win 10 games with him, and then go out and win a playoff game or two, right? So, you're right. It's not a long time ago, and if I had been if you're a fan of this franchise, how are you not worn down? I give people here a lot of credit for sticking it out, because it's not just. We've all rooted for losing teams. I grew up in Cleveland. I rooted for a lot of losing teams. But it's all the other stuff, and it's just, you want to at least the Indians would be bad, but you knew the organization was good and they're going to build something because you had trust in that, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but did you have that here? I don't think. And I remember the word trust I would use a lot. They have to rebuild the trust. And so for the Harris Group, one of the things with top priorities is rebuilding that trust. And how do you go about doing that? And a lot of it is by your dealings with the public, with the suites. And again, don't embarrass the franchise.
Yeah, no doubt. Week 1 this year, hands in. All right, John Keim's covered this team since 1994. He's never covered an 11-win team. Cakes on 3, 1, 2, 3 cakes. I think that's the rallying cry. Here we go. All right, I think you have to go, sir. You had something to do. I've taken far more of your time than I anticipated, but it is always good chatting with you, and hopefully we can have you again back soon on the radio.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command. First, why don't you like it? It lets other people know that it was good, and then they should watch it too. And Logan, we have a new exclusive home for full episodes.
We do. 1067 The Fans YouTube page. Go check it out and please subscribe.
Yeah, do what Logan said.
Do it.
Very, very smart.